Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's October 21st, and this will be our chart lesson for the day. And um, no chart lessons on Friday, so this will wrap up our week. Can't believe another week's gone by. They just keep flying by. I did want to start by showing you the daily chart. Notice that we did make a new high by a few ticks there. The blue line, we had to surpass that blue line. You can see we went above that by a couple of ticks there. Let me get this out of the way. So we did make a new high today. Doesn't mean we can't go higher still, but that was what we were looking for our target, and we're getting up in there in oversold territory. But a lot of times when you have these targets like this one here and you don't reach it, that means you're going to have a really big move in the other direction, and that's what's happened so far. You would expect, as I said way back when we were making these lows, that you would expect that we're going to at least retest these highs again. I'm not convinced the market's not going to continue to march higher after this. They keep pumping money into the system by the day, and people have nowhere to put that money, so I think a lot of people are still putting it into their 401ks, are still putting it in the stock market, and then you still have your 401ks, the people that pay in every day because that's the only retirement they have anymore. So there's still a lot of money that could be flowing into this market, or that's capable of flowing in this market. So I'm not convinced it's going to sell off yet. Doesn't mean that it can't or won't. I'm just saying my thoughts are we're probably going to go higher before this is over. Worst case scenario, we may just go into a range here. This may turn out to be a range for a while. Um, yeah, sure, we could make this new high and turn down and start trending down. It's possible. But for now, I think we're probably going to see some more upward movement. So we'll see. We'll see what the price action brings us and shows us. So we never trade what we think. We want to trade what we see. So let's look at the intraday 2000 tick chart, and we'll go over the trades. And let's go over and look at that chart. Okay, here's a look at the 2000 tick chart. You can see we really spent most of the day in this blue range, but the gray trend channel appears to be valid as well, and it played out in the end. Prices went higher. We actually looks like we may have even got an overshoot. It could be that this is just higher. Maybe this is up here like so. Yeah, it does tend to fit. You can see the midline fits real well that way. We just didn't quite get there on this move up because of the range. The breakout failed. So that's what it's looking like to me. And but yeah, that's what we're looking at. It looked like it was going to be a range, and you could almost say this was a range because we traded inside the overnight highs and lows, really, other than right here and late this afternoon. So again, in the end, it's an uptrend. But if you played this, as a range early on, following these shorter term trend channels, you're in good shape. And that's why I tell you, you're better off to trade these tighter, and this bigger picture is just kind of help you get a bigger picture. So that's what we use them for. Well, let's just take that off because it just kind of clouds the thing. And I talked about the closing yesterday. You can see that when we started heading higher here, this was the target, obviously sold off after that. It came back and tested it a couple more times before it broke higher and went higher. So I'm leaning to this 4 o'clock closing time being the proper closing price that we're going to use from the previous day. So just keep that in mind. But let's take a look at the trades. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. Make this a little easier to see. But even if it was going to be a range early on, we'd just come off the low side and we were kind of trending higher here. This yellow channel was pretty obvious that it was in play. 7 o'clock actually comes just as we're bottoming out right here. It's tempting to take this trade right here, but it's starting to look a little congested, and I think you're better to wait. And if you wait just a few minutes, you get a first entry short, and then a second entry short with a little trap right there. It's not a perfect reversal type pattern. It's really a breakout pullback type pattern as well, but you can treat that like a failure. If it breaks higher there, they're probably going to run some stops, and you can see how quickly it runs up. Then it pulls back and gives you a second entry long as well. We're still inside this downtrend channel. I've marked this one because it's obviously an uptrend, and we're not back to the highs yet. We haven't even reached the closes up here. We haven't reached these highs. You may take that trade. It's still a little risky because of this downtrend channel, but you can see that's the first break, and then we move to a new low. And then you get a first entry and then a second entry. Again, this is a little bit congested right here, but you can clearly see it's confirming that trend line. It breaks higher. If it had given you a decent signal bar here on the higher low, I'd say take that one too. But I like entering on that one. It looks a little congested. That's just because you're really kind of stuck between the EMA and the trend line and the midline for the range. But you can see we tested that midline 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see all the stem and mostly closing up here. These bars are mostly ending bullish. It looks like it does want to make that breakout pullback type entry, and you don't get a good signal bar there, but I still like entering right here. You always got to be careful on congestion, but it's a second entry. It's off a key entry point. It's a great signal bar. We haven't reached our target, which is probably the highs, and then maybe then next would be the close from the previous day. So there's still a lot of room there to the upside. It does take off. Pulls back. It gives you another second entry right here, and we still haven't gotten back up to the high side, but the signal bar is not good enough. But if you wait a few minutes, you get a first entry and then a second entry short, and so you got a failure if it breaks higher. And this is kind of a breakout pullback. This is going to act as a trap. There, obviously, you got to be concerned about the resistance, but it's fairly clear we're making higher highs and higher lows still. So with this trap, I feel certain you're going to get a scalp, and this is probably going to be your target. But this thing still had a little momentum and went much higher. But I don't think you want to risk. There's no other setups up here that's worth risking going long or anything. And then suddenly we turn over, and unfortunately you don't get a chance to go short. You get a lower high right here, but the signal bar is too bullish, and there's a failure right here, but you got to go short right into the resistance that could act as support because you got the trend line, you got the support there. I just don't think you want to risk that. And it just continues to go lower. You do get a break here with a big bearish bar, so you might have considered going short there, but it's so close to the low, and I don't think you could have. I don't know if you'd have gotten this because it gaps over and just keeps going. That's really bearish right there. All these longs realize now, hey, we're going lower, and just about the time they all rush out, you get a capitulation and it starts up again. Typical price action. How it works, it runs everybody out, runs their stops, and then we're going higher again. And notice you got your break and new low, and you make a first entry short, and you get a second entry short. That's what a reversal looks like that you usually want to take. Plenty of room back to this high. Of course, it turns down right off of it, but then it gives you another second entry. I don't know if I'd have waited on this bar to close. If I did, I would let it break higher, and I'd drop a limit order a few more ticks back just to give yourself room here. You really couldn't trade this as engulfing because this signal bar is not good enough. So if you take this one, you really want to give it a little more room here, in my opinion. And you got room to get in a few ticks back here, 4, 5, 6 ticks maybe. I'm not sure what it was. Then you get another second entry here. Signal bar is not good enough, and you can't go long right into this resistance right here at this point because notice we're not really pushing above it. We're just kind of getting stuck there. If you got a second entry or something or some kind of trap, maybe you take that, but you just don't get that, and you see it fails instantly on the breakout. I don't think you want to go short here either. You might take that trade. Really, you're better off to wait on a lower high, but you might consider that because what we did was we came back and tested that overnight close one more time and you get that big bearish bar off of it, there's a little bit of room back to the EMA, and you're probably going to come back to the other side of the channel at the minimum. This thing runs down and gives you a break, and then you get a first entry and it pulls back and you get a second entry long. This one you can trade the engulfing bar, and again, I don't know that I trade this going long at the high because it's 14 ticks. So when it breaks lower and turns up, if you want to be a little bit aggressive, trade this on the engulfing bar, but generally you're better to wait for this bar to close if you're not a really skilled chart reader. That's my recommendation. But again, you might let it break low higher and drop a limit order, maybe back to the support area or so here, and you can see it actually came back quite a bit. That makes it reasonable. And then where do we go? We go right back up to the close from yesterday before we back off, and then it actually pushes higher. But I don't see any trade there that makes this worth trying to take a long up here, especially right into that closing there. There's not a trap here because this is your failure's right here. You might have entered on the failure. It doesn't quite get back to the EMA, but that's because it finds the trend line. But there's just not much room back to this from right here to here, and it may turn down again, which it does, but it wouldn't have stopped you out this time. So I just think it's too risky, and I don't see anything else here. This thing just kind of takes off right into 2 o'clock and makes a new high. Obviously, this is the break of your yellow channel, and we make the new high. And notice too that we make almost a perfect measured move. Here's your blue range, and then this line is the height of it from the high of the range to here. So that's a measured move on the range. That's what we got, and then it sails off. That's way after 2 o'clock, but just wanted to point that out, that it's another perfect measured move there. Okay, I had a slight interruption there. I think we went through all the trades. But yeah, you can see most of it was sideways today. A lot of sideways action until we had this little rally late in the day, and we ran up a measured move based on the range. And that did put us on the daily chart. That gave us a new high by a couple of ticks before we sold off fairly strongly. I figured we'd find some pretty stout resistance up there, and you can see it sold off pretty quickly. But it's late in the day there too, so you're probably seeing your 3 o'clock exit as everybody exits there too. Actually, the 3 o'clock comes. Well, let's just look and see where 3 o'clock comes. Right in there. So yeah, that's probably your 3 o'clock exit, and then we sold off after that. But anyway, not much else we can say about today. It just played out pretty much how I expected it to, kind of sideways to a slightly upward bias till we made that new high. We could see a correction or a reversal now. We'll just have to see what tomorrow brings. With tomorrow being Friday, though, no more chart lessons. So we won't be back until Monday. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, make this one short and sweet today. Not a lot of trades. There's some fairly, you might have caught a runner on 1 or 2 of these, but not really any runners or anything today for the most part, because it's mostly choppy, and it's hard to get a runner unless you can catch a move like this, or there's a nice trend. So, I mean, even this trend is so choppy that you don't have a very good chance of catching a runner unless you're going to sit out a pullback and, go into the negative a little bit. Honestly, I'll tell you, I took, I believe it was this trade right here. Actually, I think it was, no, I can't remember where it was. I took one of these trades, and I had to ride out a pullback on a couple of my runners, but I didn't tighten my stop. I gave it a little extra room because I felt confident we were going to go higher, and so I held on a little longer, and it paid off for me. So sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, and so it's probably not the smartest way to do it. But if you're a really good chart reader and you're pretty confident in your read, sometimes you might want to do that on the runners. Use some of your profits on your scalp to give yourself a little more room because they're going to get that break-even stop a lot. They know where they know how we do this. They know what we're doing. They know a lot of people do this. Scalp the way we're scalping and move, trying to get runners and moving your stops to break even real quickly and that kind of thing. And a lot of traders even just trade that way. They automatically move their stop to break even real quick after prices move into profit. And they know where those stops are, and they come back and try to run them a lot. It needs to be a good trend day, or you need to get a big rally like this. This is where you catch the runners. So, but anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.